Usually when we think about armor, we picture like a knight in shining steel.
Right, yeah. Impenetrable.
Exactly, just imposing. You look at that metal plating and you think, now there is someone who is ready for anything.
But what if the thickest armor actually belongs to the most fragile creatures?
Yeah, what if the bigger the shield, the softer, the more, I guess, terrified the thing hiding behind it actually is?
That tension between our inner fragility and the outer walls we build is exactly what we're dissecting today.
It is. We are looking at this deeply thought-provoking essay. It's titled Break Through the Consciousness of Walls.
Mm-hmm.
And it was written by an author named Zhu Feng, and the translation we're working from today is by Kinyu. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the paradoxical relationship between our deep-seated inner insecurities and the physical, mental, and societal walls we construct.
Right, and we're going to try and figure out why the author believes that tearing those walls down is really the only way to actually live.
Yeah, because to understand the human mind, the essay argues that we first need to look at biology, specifically snails.
Snails. I know, it seems like an unusual starting point.
No bit.
But the snail actually provides this perfect, tangible metaphor for what the author is trying to explain about human psychology.
How so?
Well, the text points out that creation destined the snail to travel with this heavy, really cumbersome shell on its back.
Right.
And there's this observable rule with most mollusks. The softer and more physically vulnerable they are on the inside, the harder and thicker their exterior shell has to be.
Just to survive.
Exactly, just to survive. And conversely, if a creature has a tougher, more resilient interior structure, their exterior is often much softer and, more pliable.
It's basically a biological balancing act. Like if you don't have an internal skeleton to hold you up, you have to build an external one.
That's a great way to put it.
And the author argues that humans exhibit the exact same phenomenon, just in a psychological and behavioral sense.
They do. The essay asks you to think about the person who is, say, a domestic tyrant.
Oh, yeah. We all know the archetype.
Right. Someone who is incredibly harsh, domineering, or just aggressively controlling with their spouse or their kids.
Or even their immediate neighbors.
Yeah. And the author observes that when this exact same person travels far from home,
right,
when they are entirely out of their comfort zone, they frequently become weak, submissive, and just completely compliant.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism driving that shift.
Yes. When someone lacks genuine internal stability, when their ego is essentially that soft, vulnerable mollusk they have to manufacture an environment where they feel powerful.
That's the domestic tyranny. It's an artificial shell they've built right in their immediate surrounding.
Exactly. But the moment they step outside that highly controlled environment, the shell is gone. And their true internal weakness is completely exposed.
And the essay highlights the complete inverse of this too, right?
It does. The people who are incredibly meek and gentle with their loved ones, the ones who really don't require dominance to feel secure in their inner circle, they are almost always the people who display immense courage and strength when they're facing strangers or external adversity.
Because they have an internal skeleton. They don't need the external armor to hold them upright.
Exactly.
The text points out that those who are constantly, initiating internal conflict within their own social groups are actually the most timid when they step outside that bubble.
Yeah, there's this really sharp observation in the essay. People who viciously attack their own compatriots or their own nation often act incredibly docile when they're confronted by foreigners.
Wow. It really all comes down to the psychology of the facade.
It does. The author systematically breaks down how our external packaging is a direct, inverse reflection of our internal state.
Like feeling unattractive on the inside leads to obsessive packaging on the outside.
Right. Or a poor economic reality often pushes someone to aggressively flaunt branded, flashy clothes.
And it extends beyond just physical appearance, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A lack of actual authority leads someone to put on airs and act bossy.
Right.
A lack of genuine wisdom results in someone desperately pretending to be profound, using complex jargon to hide a shallow understanding.
And a lack of real capability leads to flattery and ingratiating behavior toward those in power.
Essentially, the author's establishing this law of behavioral physics. A weak inner self practically guarantees that a person will relentlessly fortify and isolate themselves.
I do want to dig into that a bit, though, because if we take that to its absolute extreme, it feels almost too definitive.
How do you mean?
Well, if I see someone walking down the street in a designer coat, or someone being assertive in a meeting, is that always a neon sign pointing to a fragile inner self?
That's a fair question.
Because if we view all human behavior through the lens of the snail shell, don't we risk ignoring practical reality? Like sometimes a wall is just a wall because you need to keep the wind out, right?
Right.
Practical self-preservation isn't always pathological.
And that's a crucial distinction to make. But if we analyze the specific psychological argument the text is building, the author isn't condemning the mere existence of a coat or the basic utility of a boundary.
Okay.
They are critiquing the desperate existential reliance on the armor.
The reliance on it, right.
The psychological mechanism at play here is confirmation bias fueled by anxiety. When your entire identity relies on the branded shirt or the aggressive posturing, the defense is no longer practical. It becomes your entire world.
And the text emphasizes that the narrower a person's mind is, the more vehemently they feel the need to defend themselves.
Exactly. Because if you build a massive wall, your brain subconsciously registers that there must be a massive threat worth hiding from.
Wow. Yeah. The very act of over-defending yourself signals to your nervous system that you are in constant danger.
Which just keeps you in a perpetual state of anxiety.
Which perfectly transitions us into how these psychological realities literalize themselves in the real world.
Because they don't just stay in our heads.
No, they don't. These inner walls don't just stay neatly tucked away in our subconscious. They literally start to rewrite the physical architecture of our cities and our living spaces.
It's true. The author actually witnessed this firsthand and shares a really stark anecdote about the largest golf course in Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe.
Yeah, let's talk about the Harare golf course.
It's a brilliant microcosm of this broader societal shift.
Yeah.
The author describes how, not too long ago, this massive golf course, situated right in front of their house, was surrounded by nothing more than a simple wire fence.
Okay.
And from the outside, anyone walking down the street could look right through the mesh and take in the lush green grasses, the gentle slopes, the expansive layout.
So it was open. It was a vast, beautiful, open view that belonged to the public visually, even if they couldn't physically walk on the grass.
Exactly. And equally, from the inside of the course, the golfers had a picturesque view of the surrounding neighborhood and the horizon.
It was a shared visual landscape. It connected the insiders and the outsiders.
But then, just a month prior to the writing of this essay, that entire dynamic was abruptly severed.
What happened?
A solid, cold, gray wall was erected around the entire perimeter of the golf course.
Just like that.
Just like that. And the author notes the immediate stifling psychological effect this had on the environment.
Because suddenly the outsiders cannot see in and the insiders cannot see out.
Right. That expansive, infinite view vanished overnight, replaced by a domineering gray barrier. The author actually describes it as creating an instant, deep sense of oppression.
So the physical wall manifested a psychological blockade.
Yes. And what the author noticed was that this wasn't just an isolated incident with the golf course. It was a symptom of an entire neighborhood and perhaps an entire society retreating inward.
They reflect on what the homes in this exact same neighborhood looked like, 10 years prior?
Yeah, 10 years ago. Back then, homes had very low walls, or often no walls at all.
Yeah.
People marked their property lines with plants, climbing vines, or just low wire mesh. As a pedestrian, you could walk down the street and enjoy the unique beauty of every single household's garden.
You could see the flowers blooming, watch the dogs and cats play in the yards. The community was visually porous.
Visually porous, exactly. And the people sitting inside those yards weren't trapped in a box either. Their view extended out to infinity, blending with their neighbors' yards and the street beyond.
But then you contrast that open, porous environment with the neighborhood today, as described in the text.
It's bleak.
The author paints a picture of intense, almost militaristic fortification. Every single household is now walled off.
And these aren't just privacy fences, they are high walls, topped with coiled barbed wire.
Right. The gates are no longer decorative wood. They are thick, heavy black iron plates, sealed tightly without a single crack to peek through.
The inside is completely, utterly isolated from the outside.
It's an architectural manifestation of the snail shell, just scaled up to the size of a human dwelling.
It really is. And the author makes a profound observation about the collateral damage of this kind of fortification. By blocking others, you inevitably, unavoidably block yourself.
Right. By limiting what other people can see of you, you limit your own view of the world.
Yes. Closing the heavy iron doors and shutting the windows keeps the perceived threats out. It stops the stranger from looking in. but it fundamentally prevents the entry of sunlight and fresh air.
It's the ultimate architectural irony. It's like spending your entire life savings building a state-of-the-art, impenetrable fortress to keep out the bad guys.
Only to realize once you lock the door that you forgot to build any windows.
Exactly. And now you're just suffocating in the dark. You've protected yourself from the world by entirely removing yourself from it.
And the author argues that not opening one's heart, not leaving that visual or emotional window open, explicitly rejects communication with other beautiful souls.
If we look at the psychological feedback loop here, it explains why we fall into this trap.
Yeah.
It comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of what safety actually is.
Yes, the essay introduces a really powerful paradox. Cleverness turns into folly.
Cleverness turns into folly.
The idea is that the more you defend yourself, the more confined you become. The more you aggressively emphasize your own safety, the less secure you actually feel.
We think building the wall will lower our anxiety. But because the wall prevents us from seeing the outside world, our imagination fills the unseen space with monsters.
It's a devastating cycle. Desperate self-protection, setting up these impenetrable defenses absolutely everywhere you go. The author argues that this state of hypervigilance means you are actually at your weakest, your most troubled, and honestly, your most bored.
Well, yeah, because nothing is getting in. There is no spontaneity, no serendipity.
None. The text points out a really sharp psychological blind spot. The moment you feel great and extraordinary because you've successfully hidden yourself away is precisely when you are at your smallest and most useless.
When you hide your true emotions and thoughts, guarding them as if they are precious treasures that the world might steal, the author says you're actually just harboring rotten and foul garbage.
Right. Without the fresh air of external perspective, our internal world just stagnates.
Here's where it gets really interesting. To really drive this point home, the author uses a series of escalating metaphors.
And these metaphors illustrate the horrific limitations we willingly impose on ourselves in the name of safety.
They start relatively benignly, right, pointing out that a pigsty might be quite large, but it offers absolutely no view of the outside world.
Exactly. It's a space designed purely for containment.
Then they scale it up. A pond might give you enough room to swim around and exercise your muscles, but it will never let you experience the vast, unpredictable majesty of the sea.
Walls, they argue, absolutely enable survival, but they entirely hide the world's wonders.
And after the pigsty and the pond, the author drops this ultimate, chilling metaphor: the coffin.
The coffin, yeah.
They write that lying in a coffin, buried deep underground, absolutely protects you from the cold wind. It protects you from the fierce storms above. Inside that box, you are perfectly, undeniably safe.
Nothing can hurt you.
Nothing can hurt you. But it also entirely deprives you of the myriad joys of life. The author's demanding that we look around at the barbed wire and the iron gates and ask ourselves, are you living in a house, or are you just comfortably buried in a highly secure, well-decorated coffin?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what Kwafeng is forcing us to confront is the stark, uncompromising difference between biological survival and actually living.
Survival versus living.
Right. Our evolutionary biology constantly screams at us to seek safety, to avoid risk, to thicken our shell. But the human drive for absolute, impenetrable security is actually a drive towards sensory and emotional death.
Because in a perfectly controlled environment, nothing unexpected can happen.
And if nothing unexpected can happen, growth is impossible. Total safety, in the author's framework, is functionally indistinguishable from death.
So if total security breeds paranoia and ultimately results in a kind of living death, then the only logical way to actually live is to willingly expose ourselves to risk.
We have to want to experience the sea, not just pace back and forth in the pond.
Right. But the essay doesn't just diagnose the disease. It offers a specific path to expansion.
It does. And the antidote to the coffin is a mandate for radical openness.
The text states that the vastest ocean is the one that accommodates the most rivers.
The most open heart is the one most likely to give birth to the greatest thoughts. It's an argument for intellectual and emotional biodiversity.
It's entirely about intake and output. The author argues that those who refuse to reject a diverse diet are the ones who build the strongest physical bodies.
And they apply this exact same logic to human connection. There's this beautiful point about love. The person who ultimately receives the most love is the one who selflessly gives their love to as many people as possible.
It completely flips the defensive mindset. The walled-off mind operates on an economy of scarcity. Protect what little you have.
But the open mind operates on an economy of abundance. The more you flow outward, the more flows back in.
And the author frames this not just as a nice philosophical idea, but as an urgent mandate to act.
Yes, they write that a lamp shouldn't be hidden away. It should be placed on a stand to shine and illuminate the room.
Flowers shouldn't stay tightly budded. They must bloom at the exact right time to release their fragrance. And human beings must seize their opportunities to create and express themselves while they are here.
The text is very stark about the passage of time. Time waits for no one, the essay says. Lost time and missed opportunities never return.
We cannot let idleness, emptiness, and this paranoid hiding occupy the precious, finite space of our lives.
Absolutely.
But practically speaking, this is where the friction happens, right? We built those walls for a reason. We put up those iron gates because the world out there can be dangerous.
People do get hurt, hearts do get broken.
Exactly. So how do we actually do this? How do we tear down the iron gates without just becoming naive victims of a harsh world?
There's a specific, fascinating instruction in the text that addresses exactly this. The author says we must engage in playing seriously, being serious in play, and constantly striving toward the highest state of life.
That phrase, playing seriously, being serious in play, is really the crux of their practical advice, isn't it?
It is. It sounds like a contradiction, but it describes a state of psychological flow. The text is advocating for a vibrant, passionate engagement with the world that isn't weighed down by a paralyzing fear of the outcome.
Right. When you play a game seriously, you are fully invested in the present moment, but you also understand that a loss isn't a literal death sentence.
Exactly. It's not about being reckless or foolish. It's about recognizing that passive avoidance, or as the author calls it, lingering and hesitating in wait and observation, is a trap.
The essay frames conservatism and stubbornly sticking to the old, safe ways as literal regression.
And openness, conversely, is framed as the engine of innovation. You don't tear down the walls to invite destruction. You pare them down to invite creation. You accept the risk of the wind so you can feel the sun.
You accept the risk to invite creation. I think that is incredibly powerful. And this brings us to the final and definitely the most ambitious part of the essay.
Because Weifeng doesn't just want us to tear down the walls of our own personal backyards or our individual egos.
No, the author scales this concept of boundary breaking up to a staggering degree, moving from the individual psychological level right up to the societal and ultimately the universal level.
This is where we examine the ultimate endgame of the author's philosophy.
Okay.
The essay makes a sweeping call to integrate our individual talents and wisdom into the creation of what they refer to as the life-genuine era.
Now, as we unpack this, it's important to understand that we are analyzing the specific utopian framework the author has constructed to describe a totally redefined era of human existence.
Yeah, they're proposing a complete overhaul of how humans organize themselves.
Right. And that new architecture requires breaking down a very specific escalating sequence of societal walls. It's not just about being more open-minded at dinner parties.
No, not at all.
Let me run through the progression the author lays out, because it fundamentally challenges the core structures of modern life. First, they say we must break through the walls of life to enter the paradise of what they translate as celestial being life.
Which implies moving beyond mere biological survival and the fear of death, transcending into a higher state of consciousness.
Then they say we must break through the walls of the family to enter the home of universal love. They are asking us to dismantle the tribalism of the nuclear family and extend that exact same familial loyalty to humanity at large.
And it continues to escalate from there. Next, they argue we must break through the walls of religion and political parties to enter the sanctuary of life genuine.
Essentially calling for the abandonment of ideological dogma and partisan tribalism that divides people into warring camps.
And then, perhaps the most politically radical step, break through the walls of the nation to enter the homeland of life.
The author is envisioning a post-nationalist world where geographic borders and patriotic divisions are recognized as artificial, harmful constructs that we need to outgrow.
So, what does this all mean? We started this deep dive talking about the biological weight of a snail's shell and a literal gray wall built around a golf course in Zimbabwe.
And following the author's logic step by step, we are now talking about literally transcending the fear of death, abandoning political parties, dissolving national borders, and redefining the very concept of family.
This raises an important question for all of us, one that sits at the very heart of this essay.
What's that?
How many of these massive societal structures Our nationality, our political affiliations, even our strict exclusionary definitions of who counts as family, do we treat as immutable laws of nature.
Right. We act as if borders and political parties are gravity.
But the author is challenging us to see them for what they truly are: walls. Walls that human beings built out of fear.
And if we built them to protect our fragile inner selves, we possess the capacity to dismantle them as we grow stronger.
Exactly.
But, and here's the thing, once you dismantle the nation, the religion, the family,
Yeah.
what is left? What is the final wall?
The author states that, most importantly, the final boss is internal. We must break through the walls of the mind to soar freely toward infinite freedom.
The walls of the mind.
This means stripping away our own conceptual limits, courageously venturing into mysterious and unknown realms, exploring the vast universe, and experiencing what the text beautifully calls the magical thinking melody of creating something out of nothing.
Wow.
The promise at the end of the essay is absolute and uncompromising. As long as you break through, you will see a whole new world.
Creating something out of nothing. When you strip away every pre-existing structure, you finally have a blank canvas.
You do.
Today, we've taken a hard, uncomfortable look at the armor we wear. We've asked you to evaluate whether the designer clothes, the impressive job title, or the tough exterior you project is actually just a heavy shell hiding a fragile, vulnerable ego.
We've asked you to look at your physical and mental spaces. Is your mind an open, porous garden where people can see the flowers, or have you let anxiety turn it into a barbed wire fortress without any windows?
The core, undeniable takeaway from Shuifeng's text is that true strength does not lie in a hardened shell. True strength lies in radical, vulnerable openness.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on, something that pushes this philosophy to its absolute logical limit.
Okay.
If we follow this text trajectory all the way to the end, if we successfully break down every single wall, the walls of family, of nation, of religion, and finally the conceptual walls of the mind itself, until there is absolutely nothing separating us from the rest of the universe.
Yeah.
Do we as individuals even exist anymore? If identity is defined by boundaries, by where I end and you begin, then is the ultimate infinite freedom the author promises actually the complete and total dissolution of the self.
That is a staggering thought to end on. If you remove all the boundaries, what is left of the you that started the journey? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Take a look around your own life, look at the structures you rely on, and think about what walls you might want to dismantle today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.